Salutations, spooks, spirits, and specters, and welcome back to more Corpse Party Book of Shadows as we continue episode 7. We got an amethyst that's supposed to ward off full body spirits one time, so let's give it a shot. It appears to be the ghost of a young boy. Here's the amethyst. I held the amethyst in front of me and approached the spirit. And incredibly, it actually worked. Both the ghost and the gem faded and disappeared. The stairwell was now free to be traversed.
Emi! 大丈夫! さっきまでそこに幽霊みたいなのがいてさ。みんなは早く片山連れて出よう。
Emi's face was absolutely wrecked with tears, and she was shaking her head violently. She wanted to tell me something, but the words just weren't coming. I had a really bad feeling about this. I ran past her to the bathrooms, to where Katayama was being lifted onto Yuya's shoulders when I left him. Why? Katayama was back on the floor, right where we'd set him down when this whole ordeal began. Why wasn't he on Yuya's shoulders? What was going on? I had an inkling, but I didn't want to believe it, so I pushed it out of my mind.
Yuya? みんな何してるの? 早く片山連れてかなきゃ。会わなかったよ。さっきトウコが降りた後、すごい声を上げて、そのまま。
I didn't know what else to say. A person had just died. And not some stranger, but a person I knew. A friend. It was the strangest feeling. I kept looking at him and thinking, is he really dead? Is this really what a person looks like when he dies? Seeing him like that drained every last bit of energy I had in me. I fell to my knees, thoroughly defeated.
Ohkawa 君、片山君から離れないって。どうすればいいの?
Emi and I couldn't stay near the body. We'd gone down to the second floor, where we picked a corner and just stood there, trying to recompose ourselves. Yuya elected to stay with Ohkawa on the third floor, I guess to try and break him from his shock and help put some distance between him and Katayama. None of this felt real, or maybe I just didn't want it to be real. It was a nightmare. It had to be. I'd just sit up in my bed, and it would all be over.
どうしてこんなことになっちゃったんだろう。 冷めないね。おかしいな。冷めないの。さっきから夢だと思おうとしてるんだけど。トウコ。
My energy was waning again. I sank to the ground, landing on my knees. Emi followed my lead and put an arm around me for comfort. A friend had just died. He just died. God, why? Huh? Emi and I looked at each other. We both heard them. Footsteps coming down the hall. It was too dark to make out who it was, but the gate was decidedly male. The two of us slowly and quietly rose to our feet, hid around the corner, and peeked out, both terrified and curious as to whom or what we might see. There, at the end of the hall, the figure finally came into view. It was a tallish man, unsteadily teetering as he slowly strode toward us. It was Shimada, drenched from head to toe.
Shimada-kun! Huh?
Emi shot forward, intending to run toward him, but I grabbed her arm and held her back without even thinking about it. She turned and looked at me with a puzzled expression.
あいつ、私無理。まさか、なんかされたの？うん。よかった。こんな時だし、起こったことだけでも伝えておかないと。
She looked back at me again as she said this, staring right into my eyes in an almost disciplinary manner. It was the perfect guilt stare. I couldn't help but succumb to it, feeling bad for not having filled her in about the Shimada incident. Shimada continued his slow, wet walk down the hall. Then, all of a sudden, for no discernible reason, he simply fell forward, landing hard on his knees. Something was wrong with him, and while I loathed that man, I didn't want to see him suffer. Emi and I were both poised to rush to his aid, when other figures randomly began appearing all around him. Figures of children, blue and ethereal, shimmering with their own light. We could barely even see Shimada from our vantage point anymore, as his body was obscured almost completely by the backs of these ghost children. He wasn't moving though, so it didn't seem like they were doing anything to him. But then, he wasn't moving at all, which seemed highly suspicious. It occurred to me that maybe we should try to save him. I inched forward. He was still in exactly the same position he had been when he fell to his knees. He literally hadn't moved at all. Was he unconscious? Emi and I looked at one another and nodded. It was a silent signal to move forward and do whatever we could to help. The children vanished as we approached, revealing a horrific sight. Shimada's stomach had been flayed wide open. He was dead. The knife he'd flaunted earlier was jutting from the wound. It was an almost ceremonial death, like that of a samurai who'd thrown himself on his sword. Yuya, who'd presumably rushed down to see what was wrong, calmly walked over to Shimada's body. He was checking for signs of respiration or pulse. He turned back to face us again a moment later, and his facial expression said it all. Shimada really was dead. I was beginning to lose it. I just couldn't take any more of this. My friends and acquaintances were dying, one by one. I guess I should say had died, but it didn't seem like it was over. Not by a long shot.
やばいよ、ここ。何かいる。私たちを殺そうとしてる。
Hell, it was doing more than trying. It had already succeeded twice over. I was scared. I was paranoid. I was shaking and crying and screaming inside. I was deathly afraid that something else would show up. And then it did. It was a little girl in a red dress, standing between us and the third-floor staircase. I couldn't make out the expression on her face through her bangs, but I could literally feel the hatred in her eyes as she stared into our souls. Then she turned around and slid up the staircase into the third-floor hallway. Emi was turned the other way, so she hadn't seen the girl at all. She eventually followed our gazes, but by that time the girl was gone. She looked confused. That particular apparition looked a lot different from the other ghosts I'd seen, but there was still no doubt in my mind. She was definitely a ghost.
大川君は連れてこようよ。とにかく出なきゃ、この学校から。私呼んでくる。
待て。
ゆうや、私も。
危険だ。ここで待っていろ。
Dangerous? Well, that is the direction the girl in the red dress went, and I guess Yuya didn't want me to be put in harm's way. I nodded and watched his back recede into the darkness as he chased after Emi.
Tohko. 冷静な心に 叶う武器はない。今一番大事なことは何？
What was going on? Why was Emi screaming? I could hear voices now. Emi and Ohkawa were having a heated argument.
無理よ、置いて逃げなきゃ捕まるわ。
こいつを置いていけないだろう。早く病院へ連れて行かなきゃ。も
う死んでるわ。
死んでない。死んでない。死んでないんだ。
Leave him and run? We'll get caught? That ghost girl must have been pursuing them.
大変だ。行かなきゃ。何？
人殺し！
Katayama's body was sprawled unceremoniously on the landing halfway up to the third floor, along with Ohkawa. At the top of the stairs stood Emi, and in front of her, Yuya, with an imposing scowl on his face. I didn't understand any of this. What had just happened? Emi let out another scream and came running toward me down the stairs. Ohkawa then seemed as if he'd fallen and broken his arm. He was lopsidedly crawling toward me. It was almost as if he were trying to distance himself from Yuya.
人殺し！人殺し！
I ran to the base of the stairs to meet up with Emi. I needed some sort of context here.
エミ、何？どうしたの？
逃げろ！逃げろ！殺されるぞ！
キザミ君が蹴り落としたの。急に。
I glanced up at Yuya, but his face was shrouded in darkness. I couldn't make out any expression at all. Ohkawa seemed to have reached his breaking point. He shot to his feet and took off behind me toward the second floor as fast as he could. Yuya kicked Ohkawa down the stairs? Why?
嘘でしょ。
Slowly, he walked down to the landing. He was neither concerned nor scornful. His face was a blank slate. As soon as he reached my level, he bent down and began fiddling with Katayama's body, raising the arms, then letting them drop, wiping blood from the ears and nose, then looking at it as if studying a specimen under a microscope. What the hell? He was enjoying this? I finally got to see an emotion written clearly on his face, and it was elation? How was this not some crazy dream? Tears began spilling from my eyes like water. I was shocked, confused, and I don't even know what else. Emi and I found ourselves standing in front of the door to the school infirmary.
鍵島田が抜いてなくしちゃったんだよね。こんなとこ逃げ込んでもし見つかったら終わりだよ。下に逃げよう。
The poor girl was frantic. I can't say I blamed her, but, well, something about this whole situation didn't feel right to me.
エミ、やっぱり私信じられない。あ、何が？ユウヤがあんな優しいユウヤがひどいことするなんて。だって本当に蹴り落としたのよ。大川を信じられないよ。じゃあ勝手にすればいいよ。もう。
With that, Emi pushed me out of the way and ran past me toward the stairwell leading to the first floor.
エミ！知らない！私のこと嘘つきだって言うんでしょ！
And off she went. I was now separated from every one of my friends. But was I really in danger? I mean, I was, but from Yuya? That just didn't seem right. Or more likely, I didn't want it to be. I wanted to believe that this was all a misunderstanding. My legs were shaking and my head was swimming. I just stood there, unsure of where I should go or what I should do. And then there he was, right behind me. And in his hands was Shimada's huge knife, the one that was last seen jutting from Shimada's stomach. It was still dripping with blood. This definitely made matters more complicated. How could I doubt Yuya's guilt when he was holding something like that? Why did he even have it? How could he possibly bring himself to pull a knife from his friend's lifeless corpse? But I wasn't going to run. I turned around and I braced myself. I opened my mouth, intent on discussing this rationally. If I ran away now, I felt like it would all be over. There would be nothing left to save, no one left to trust. But what could I possibly say to him? Are you all right? My body was still visibly shuddering, and I doubted I'd have much of a voice if I tried talking. But I just wanted this all to be a horrible mistake so badly. I knew I had to say something. I knew I had to get through to him. Maybe he was just freaking out in his own way. This whole experience had been taxing for all of us, and Yuya's only human. He must have been terrified. And maybe I could help get him through it. Get him to talk about what's bothering him and feel a little better. It was worth a shot, at least.
ゆうや大丈夫？
桐崎、浦部と大川はどこだ？
どうして？
No answer. He just started muttering to himself and slowly walked right past me, as if I weren't even there.
ゆうや何するの？何持ってるのそれ？
使えそうだ。いろいろ。
やめて！捨ててよ！
No, I couldn't let this go on. I grabbed him by the arm and just clung to him, putting my full weight on his body to keep him from going any farther down the hallway. He was at a crossroads, about to walk down a path of no return, and I wasn't going to lose the kind, considerate Yuya I'd fallen for. Unfortunately, the only tools I had at my disposal for stopping him were my feelings, and those just weren't going to be enough. I was so startled that it took me a moment before I'd figured out what happened.
同じだ。ここでは。
That was the first time in my entire life that I'd ever been punched in the head, and he put everything he had into it.
この学校に殺されるのも。
I couldn't focus. My brain was still rattling inside my skull from the impact.
俺に殺されるのも。
The world was spinning. I looked up at him with spasmodic, twitchy, tear-filled eyes. There was no sign of remorse or compassion whatsoever. He looked like a feudal warrior, clutching his sword and staring down at his enemy. The area all around my eye was throbbing. It hurt so badly and felt so swollen and sore, I couldn't even imagine what it must have looked like. And he wasn't done with me. He got in closer and closer, grinning unnaturally as he raised his fist for a second strike.
お前で試すか、最初。
I was running on pure instinct and adrenaline at this point. I shot to my feet and just forced them to carry me to safety. Somewhere. Anywhere. He was going to kill me. He was really going to kill me. God. I felt something rattling around uncomfortably inside my mouth, so I spit it out into my hand. It was white. A single white tooth with blood-red highlights at its root. That maniac had actually knocked out one of my teeth. He was there, just behind me. I panicked, tripping over my own feet and stumbling to the ground on the landing between the first and second floor. I'd fallen on my backside, dropping my tooth on the ground next to me. I began slinking away from the encroaching figure of Yuya Kizami. Save me. Somebody. Anybody. God, please. I was scooting backwards across the floor, too stiff, sore and scared to stand. But then my hand brushed across something small and metallic. A key!
島田がなくした保健室の鍵だ。
Even with my hand right over it, I was shaking so badly that I could barely work my fingers to get a grip. It was the most frustrating feeling in the world, and for a few seconds, that felt like hours. I just kept trying in vain to pick up that damned key. Finally, I slipped my fingers through the ring. I had it. This was my one and only chance. Scrambling to my feet, I somehow slipped past Yuya and ran back up the second floor. I ran back up to the second floor as fast as I could force my shaky legs to carry me. I had the key. I could lock myself in. I could hide in the infirmary. And I'm gonna go ahead and leave it right here. So thank you all very much for watching, and ciao for now. Ciao for now.